Welcome back to my channel Celeb Buzz. Please share and subscribe and press the bell icon for new updates. The Lindbergh kidnapping mystery has finally been solved, and the truth is really bad. Charles Lindbergh was born Charles Augustus Lindbergh on February 4, 1902 in Detroit, Michigan. He grew up in a family that helped shape his big dreams, his never-give-up attitude, and his love for adventure. His dad was also named Charles Augustus Lindbergh. His dad came from Sweden and was a U.S. congressman who really didn't want America to join World War I. His mom was Evangeline Lodge Lindbergh. She was very smart and worked as a chemistry teacher. Even though he was born in Detroit, young Charles spent most of his growing up years in Little Falls, Minnesota. This small town taught him how to take care of himself, love nature, and gave him space to learn how machines worked. Lindbergh started going to school at Little Falls High School and finished in 1918. During his high school years, he got really interested in engines and how to fix things. He loved to work on cars and motorcycles. This helped him later when he became crazy about airplanes. He went to different schools like the University of Wisconsin-Madison and the University of Michigan, but he had trouble staying interested in regular classes. He found classrooms boring and didn't like sitting still. He liked working with his hands and building things much better. In 1920, he signed up for engineering classes at the University of Wisconsin-Madison because he wanted to become a mechanical engineer. But his love for excitement and flying planes soon became more important than school. After studying for 2 years, he made a big life decision to quit school in 1922 and learn how to fly in Lincoln, Nebraska. This brave choice showed he was willing to do something different and chase a dream that most people thought was impossible. In February 1922, Lindbergh signed up at the Nebraska Aircraft Corporation's flying school. This is where he first went up in the sky, not as the pilot, but as a passenger in a Lincoln Standard Tour biplane. In April of that year, he got his first real flying lesson at the same school. But he knew that learning by doing was just as important as learning in class. So Lindbergh left the school in June to find his luck and get more experience as a barnstormer. Barnstormers were brave pilots who traveled around the country doing amazing flying tricks to entertain crowds. For several months, Lindbergh barnstormed across the American Midwest and West, performing in Nebraska, Kansas, Colorado, and Wyoming. He did really dangerous and exciting things like wing walking, which means walking on airplane wings while flying, and jumping with parachutes. He worked first with the adventurous E. Ball and later with H.L. Lynch. His willingness to do these death-defying stunts wasn't just for fun, but because he had to. These acts helped him make money and build up the flying hours and confidence he needed to become a real pilot. For a short time during this traveling period, Lindbergh worked as an airplane mechanic at the Billings Municipal Airport in Montana. This helped him understand aircraft from the inside out even better. As winter came and flying opportunities got fewer, he went back to Minnesota and stayed at his dad's house for a while. This break in his flying career let him rest and get ready for the next part of his journey. By May 1923, Lindbergh was ready to go back to flying with bigger dreams. At Sutherland Field in Americus, Georgia, he bought a war-leftover Curtiss JN for Jenny biplane and made his first solo flight. This moment was super important, not only because he flew alone for the first time, but because it made him a true pilot. From this point on, flying wasn't just something he wanted to do anymore. It became his whole life. It's 1924. Wanting to get better at flying and earn official papers, Lindbergh signed up for the U.S. Army Air Service Flying School in San Antonio, Texas. His training was really hard, demanding, and dangerous. On March 5, 1925, during a training exercise, he crashed into another plane while practicing fighting moves. Amazingly, he parachuted to safety, one of only a few students to do so. Later that year, he finished at the top of his class and became a second lieutenant in the Air Service Reserve Corps. In October 1925, Lindbergh's regular flying career started to take shape when he was hired by Robertson Aircraft Corporation as the main pilot for contract Airmail Route No. 2. This route was 278 miles long between St. Louis, Missouri, and Chicago, Illinois. The job was both challenging and important. It required being on time, having great skills, and being brave, because airmail pilots had to fly through bad weather, Without the fancy instruments we have today, Lindbergh's reliability and being professional quickly got him noticed. On May 20th, 1927, Lindbergh took off from Roosevelt Field on Long Island, New York, in the spirit of St. Louis. After a dangerous trip with no sleep across the Atlantic Ocean, flying for 33 hours and 30 minutes, he successfully landed on May 21st at Le Bourget Airport in Paris, France. He was met by a crazy, excited crowd of over 150,000 people. His amazing solo non-stop flight from New York to Paris was a huge milestone in human achievement and flying history. Lindbergh became an instant hero around the world, celebrated as a symbol of courage, new ideas, and never giving up. Later that same year, Lindbergh wrote his first book, which told the story of his incredible journey and his thoughts on flying, published by G.P. Putnam's Sons. The book became a huge bestseller. It was translated into many languages, making him even more famous around the world. Starting in July 1927, Lindbergh went on a nationwide tour to promote flying under the Daniel Guggenheim Fund for the Promotion of Aeronautics. The tour took him to 82 American cities where he gave speeches, inspired new pilots, and got people excited about flying. He was no longer just a pilot. He'd become the face of America's flying future. Between December 1927 and February 1928, Lindbergh took his message to other countries on the Goodwill Tour, visiting 16 Latin American countries to promote international friendship and the advancement of flight. During his stop in Mexico, he met Anne Morrow, the daughter of U.S. Ambassador Dwight Morrow. The two eventually got married in 1929, forming a partnership that was both romantic and smart. Anne would later become a famous pilot and writer herself. After moving to England, Lindbergh worked with Nobel Prize-winning French surgeon Dr. Alexis Carrel on groundbreaking medical engineering. Together they worked on an artificial heart pump prototype, and in 1938, published The Culture of Organs, which detailed their research and hopes for future medical devices. Between 1936 and 1938, Lindbergh visited Nazi Germany several times and saw firsthand the technological advances in German flying. He reported back to U.S. military officials, warning of Germany's quickly growing air force. Convinced of the Luftwaffe's superiority and determined to avoid war, he spoke up for American neutrality, a position that would hurt his public image. During the years before World War II, however, after the attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941, Lindbergh changed his isolationist position and committed himself to supporting the U.S. war effort, though denied a formal position because of his earlier views. He worked with Henry Ford on aircraft production and later served as a civilian consultant and test pilot with United Aircraft. He even flew 50 combat missions in the Pacific as a civilian advisor, proving his continued dedication to his country and flying. After the war, Lindbergh continued to influence the flying industry. He became the chief of staff for the newly formed United States Air Force and played a consulting role in the development of commercial aviation, especially with Pan American World Airways. In 1968, his lifelong love of exploration found a new direction when he met the crew of Apollo 8, the first spacecraft to orbit the moon, bringing his legacy full circle from Earthbound flight to space exploration. During a significant and widely publicized Goodwill Tour to Mexico in 1927, arranged by the U.S. government to promote international diplomacy and strengthen American relations, Charles Lindbergh started what would become a very personal chapter of his life. While in Mexico City, Lindbergh met Anne Spencer Morrow, the daughter of Dwight W. Morrow, who was serving as the United States ambassador to Mexico at the time. Morrow, a former partner at J.P. Morgan & Company and a respected statesman, was instrumental in organizing Lindbergh's visit, which drew huge attention from both the American expatriate community and Mexican citizens. Anne, a smart, thoughtful, and literary-minded young woman, had been a student at Smith College and was known for her quiet personality and deep, thoughtful nature. Despite the difference between her quiet personality and Lindbergh's celebrity pilot status, a spark quickly formed between them. The two spent time together exploring shared interests, especially in travel and writing. Their romance grew slowly but deeply, forming the foundation for a lifelong partnership. The following year, in 1928, Charles Lindbergh's international fame continued to grow enormously. To honor his historic solo transatlantic flight from New York to Paris in 1927, a statue commemorating his achievement was built at Le Bourget Airport, the very site in Paris where Lindbergh had landed after his grueling 33.5-hour flight aboard the Spirit of St. Louis. The statue served not only as a symbol of his pioneering accomplishment in aviation, but also as a representation of the growing international recognition of aviation as a transformative force in global travel and diplomacy. The unveiling of the statue was attended by dignitaries, aviation enthusiasts, and admirers from across Europe, further solidifying Lindbergh's iconic status on the world stage. In April 1928, seeking to preserve a critical piece of aviation history, Charles Lindbergh made the momentous decision to donate the Spirit of St. Louis, the aircraft that had carried him across the Atlantic, to the Smithsonian Institution. Understanding the significance of the plane not just to his own legacy but to the entire story of human flight, Lindbergh wanted it to be accessible to the public and to inspire future generations. The aircraft was placed on permanent display, the National Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C., where it quickly became one of the most treasured and frequently visited artifacts in the museum's vast collection. The Spirit of St. Louis, with its distinctive radial engine and lack of front windows, its design choice to increase fuel capacity, became a symbol of courage, innovation, and the unrelenting human desire to push beyond boundaries. It remains on display to this day, suspended in flight, a centerpiece of aviation history. On May 27, 1929, Charles Lindbergh and Anne Morrow were married in a quiet and private ceremony in Englewood, New Jersey, far from the crowds and cameras that typically followed Lindbergh's every move. Their union marked the joining of two remarkable individuals: Lindbergh, the daring and stoic national hero, and Anne, the thoughtful and talented writer who would later earn praise of her own for her deeply poetic prose and memoirs. Their marriage was rooted in a profound mutual respect and an adventurous spirit. Together, they embarked on numerous exploratory flights around the world, mapping new air routes and serving as informal ambassadors for aviation. Over the years, the couple had 6 children, building a family that, despite being touched by both privilege and profound tragedy, reflected their dedication to one another and to their ideals. Anne would later describe their relationship in rich detail in her best-selling books, including Gift from the Sea, while Charles would continue to push the boundaries of aviation, science, and environmental advocacy. After nearly a century of guessing, rumors, and unanswered questions, one of the most notorious crimes in American history, the kidnapping and death of Charles Lindbergh Jr., has finally been looked at again with new evidence and fresh investigation methods. The findings, however, are far from reassuring. For decades, the world believed that the case had reached its end in 1936, when Bruno Richard Hauptmann was convicted and executed for the crime. But now, forensic advances, long-buried documents, and previously silenced testimonies have begun to paint a far more complex and deeply unsettling picture. The original story was already tragic. On the evening of March 1, 1932, Charles Lindbergh Jr., the 20-month-old son of famous aviator Charles Lindbergh and his wife, Anne Morrow Lindbergh, was taken from his crib at the family's Hopewell, New Jersey estate. The crime stunned the nation. Lindbergh was not just a heroic figure because of his historic solo flight. He was a symbol of American pride, modernity, and aviation progress. To have his child kidnapped was a personal nightmare that became a national trauma. A ransom note demanded $50,000, and after a long and chaotic negotiation involving go-betweens and fake leads, the baby's body was eventually discovered in a shallow grave less than 5 miles from the Lindbergh home, brutally murdered. Despite Hauptmann's arrest and execution, many inconsistencies in the case never sat well with legal experts, authors, and conspiracy theorists alike. Kay maintained his innocence to the very end, and new technological tools such as handwriting analysis software, DNA testing, digital document archiving have now been used to re-examine every piece of surviving evidence. What they reveal is that the case may have involved more than just one man. Disturbing clues point to the possibility of a broader conspiracy, potentially involving individuals who had close access to the Lindbergh family, and possibly even someone within their inner circle. Worse still are the ethical implications now surfacing around Charles Lindbergh himself. Long seen as a victim of unimaginable cruelty, recent examinations into his private writings, his personal ideology, and possible involvement in influencing how the investigation was handled raised troubling questions. Could Lindbergh have known more than he let on? Is there a cover-up? His obsessive desire for privacy and control, paired with a personal philosophy that leaned toward eugenics and genetic purity, has led some researchers to suggest chilling theories. One such theory, previously dismissed as fringe, suggests that Lindbergh may have disapproved of something he perceived in his son, whether a health issue, a developmental delay, or simply an inconvenient flaw, and sought to quietly remove him. While there is no conclusive proof of this, the fact that this possibility is now seriously entertained shows how deeply cracked the foundation of this once closed case is cracking. What makes the revelation even more distressing is the role of law enforcement and political institutions in possibly suppressing uncomfortable truths. In the 1930s, with the nation reeling from the Great Depression and hungry for reassurance, the idea that a great American hero like Lindbergh could be wrapped in controversy was unthinkable. Authorities may have deliberately steered the investigation toward a single immigrant suspect in order to satisfy public outrage, close the case swiftly, and protect a national icon. Now, in light of these unsettling discoveries, the Lindbergh kidnapping is no longer merely a tragic story of a child taken too soon. It is a cautionary tale about blind hero worship, the manipulation of justice, and the dangers of burying uncomfortable truths to preserve public morale. The truth, long hidden behind national myth and courtroom declarations, has emerged slowly, painfully, and still incomplete. But what is already visible is enough to change the way history remembers Charles Lindbergh and the people who surrounded him. This case, once thought solved and put to rest, has returned not with closure, but with a haunting sense of betrayal. The solution to the Lindbergh kidnapping doesn't bring peace. Instead, it opens old wounds, suggests a legacy built on deception, and forces a nation to reconsider everything it thought it knew about one of its most celebrated figures. Charles Lindbergh died at the age of 72 in Kipahulu, Maui, Hawaii, to lymphoma, a type of blood cancer. He was laid to rest at the Palapalahua Church in Kipahulu, Maui.